Hi, everyone. Thank you, Greg. My name is Annie Pettit, and I am the Chief Research Officer of Conversation Strategies. I'm really quite happy to be a part of the NewMR Festival because it gives all of us, the presenters and the audience, a chance to move away from traditional conferences and do something a little more creative, a little different. So, of course, I'm going to take advantage of that opportunity. Of course, I also have to start with a traditional style to this presentation, and I'll do a bit of a case study of the US GOP, the race between Obama, Kaine, Perry, and Romney in the traditional style of social media research, that is. I'll share with you some of the standard things you would see around an election campaign, things like who's generating the most buzz, how positive or negative the buzz is, and what the buzz is about. But then, with that out of the way, I'm going to switch to something that more of us can relate to, a comparison of these four candidates through the eyes of stereotypes. So, grab a pen, some paper, and get ready for a little bit of fun in a few minutes. I think you'll like it. So first of all, if you're not already familiar with the leading candidates, here are four smart-looking professional candidates competing to lead the gallant old party, also known as the grand old party. That's where GOP comes from. I mean the acronym GOP. Those of us not from the U.S. will know the GOP better as the Republican Party, and obviously Barack Obama is the current leader. But the other three fine-looking gentlemen, they hope to replace him as the next president of the United States. First, though, they have to beat Barack and win the party leadership. So one way to monitor how these candidates are doing on their way to winning the GOP is to measure opinions in the social media space and see what kind of chatter each of them is generating. So let's start right there. For this research, I gathered a random sample of verbatims from across the internet, from blogs, microblogs, video sites, photo sites, news sites, forums, review sites, and much, much more. Basically, anywhere people can go online and type a comment or a status update or a message, this is where we looked for opinions. We collected a random sample of millions of verbatims and then determined the number of messages that were generated on a weekly basis for each of our four candidates. So the chart you see here shows the volume of weekly chatter for each person. Now, right away, you can see that Obama, the current president of the U.S., is leading in terms of sheer volume of conversation. And of course, much of that is due to the fact that he is the president right now, so people are talking about all of his responsibilities there too. Then in second place, way down in second place, generating far less chatter is Perry. Then we have Mitt Romney, followed by Herman Cain in last place. So based on this chart alone, using the most basic component of what can be measured using social media data, we might think that the clear winner is Obama. He's generating far more buzz than anyone else. We might as well just tell everybody else to go home. Thanks very much. Have a good day. But we know very well that buzz is quite useless on its own. Just because a lot of people are talking about you doesn't mean a lot of people are going to vote for you. We need more information about this chatter. So that's where we bring in sentiment, which is the second most important thing you can do with social media data. Now, I've noticed that the word sentiment, it tends to scare people a bit. We're not used to the word. We don't talk about it on a regular basis. But I'd like to suggest that you do actually know sentiment, and you know it quite well, intimately well. You just happen to refer to it as scores on a Likert scale. And instead of respondents trying to figure out what their response is to a 5-point scale, social media research has the researcher figure out the response on a 5-point scale. So what we're looking at here is simply a chart of average scores on a 5-point scale to the concept of how favorable is your opinion towards each of these four candidates. Now we get a different story. We see that Herman Cain has been generating the most positive opinions even though he did not generate the highest volume of chatter. And though our dear friend Barack Obama generated the highest volume of conversations by far, he actually generated the least positive opinions. You can even see that sentiment over time has been fairly consistent for our candidates. And of course, there's ups and downs as various issues get discussed. But the overall opinions are fairly consistent. But of course, I have to caution you once again. Volume of chatter and overall sentiment are not sufficient. There's much more that you can do with social media data. So just like surveys are composed of lots of different questions about lots of different topics, we can do the same thing with social media data. We can apply content analysis to the data and categorize it into buckets or into variables. And that brings us to the third most important part of social media research. So with this kind of research, you can use automated systems to categorize every message, every blog or tweet, whatever it might be, according to thousands of topics or variables. And then you can see which specific topics are generating the most conversations, which topics resonate the most with consumers, with voters. And that's what we see in this chart for about 20 of the top topics of conversation. So from these top conversations, I've organized them into 5 groups, from the most common topic, the ones that generated the most conversations, and those are labeled with a 1, to the least common topics, the topics that generated the fewest conversations, and those are labeled with a 5. Now we can see which particular topics get raised most often in reference to each candidate. So, right off the bat, you can see that the most common topic associated with Obama is the war, whereas the remaining candidates have the election as their most common topic. This, of course, it makes perfect sense because as the current president, Obama has to fulfill his presidential duties first. And getting the last US troops out of Iraq is obviously the most important thing for him right now. But the other candidates are obviously most involved with the impending election. All of their energies are focused there, and that's why consumers are focusing so many of their conversations there. I also find it interesting to look at the small business variable. In this case, the 4 candidates are generating completely different responses from each other. It's a top priority for Romney fans, but it doesn't even make the list for Kaine fans. Out of 20 topics, it's not even in the list. So with information like this, the candidates can determine whether they're addressing the right topics to appeal to their fan base. Of course, we know that one of the great things about social media data is the ability to track sentiment over time. And not only can we do this on an overall basis, like what we saw in an earlier slide, we can also do this in response to very specific topics. And that's what we see in this particular chart. Now, I've focused my attention solely on conversations related to the economy here. So forget conversations about war or healthcare or immigration or gay rights, whatever it is. Let's focus solely on consumer and voter opinions towards the economy. Now it's a little harder to see who's generating the most positive chatter. We can see that Kaine suffered a bit at the end of August, but he recovered fairly quickly. And we can also see that Obama is consistently at the lower end of things, the more negative side of the scale. And then just recently, Romney has been pulling ahead, generating more positive opinions. Now that brings us to the end of part 1. It's quite clear that social media is a great tool for tracking how political candidates are doing on a weekly, monthly, even a daily basis. But we all know there is far more to social media than the official professional commentary. As I said, this presentation, even though it is about the GOP, it includes something for the rest of us. something for those of us who may not have our fingers on the pulse of the US election, those of us who can only say they know Obama because they recognize his eloquent speaking abilities and his unusually proportioned ears, if I may say it like that. So part 2 of my presentation is for the rest of us. In this half, I'd like you to consider that people like to have a little fun. They like to stereotype a bit, and that's where this cartoon comes into play. This isn't just a cartoon. This is how people really see the candidates, the unconscious or conscious reasons behind actual voting results. So if you're ready and willing, I'd like to play a little game with you. So now you can take out that scrap piece of paper and a pen and prepare to play the GOP for the rest of us. The rules are very simple. I'm going to show you 4 word clouds, and you have to guess which word cloud belongs to which candidate. The basic premise behind a word cloud, if you're not familiar with it, is the large words are used more often and the small words are used less often. And the word clouds I'm going to show you reflect specific variables as opposed to overall generic topics. So on each page, choose which word cloud best reflects each of the candidates, and then I will tell you the right answer. And then just count up how many you get correct on each page. Just a note here, if you only get 3 correct on one of the pages, you might want to reconsider your career as a market researcher. So keep a tally of how many you get correct, and we'll figure out who the winner is. I will psychically know if you're cheating, so don't even try. Here goes. Here are the first 4 word clouds. The variable we are using in this case is buzzwords, those annoying words that get used over and over again and gradually start to lose all meaning. The theory here is that if you know the candidates well, you will have become accustomed to their speech patterns and how people talk about them on a regular basis. You'll know what stereotypes people use about each candidate. And what I'd like you to look at about with these particular word clouds is that the word progressive is on every word cloud. It's a massive buzzword that everybody wants to own. But clearly nobody has risen above the crowd and is actually earning it more than anybody else. There's a few other interesting things here. I like how the word innovation shows up for the person in the top left, how elitist shows up for the person in the bottom left. But overall, each candidate is generating fairly similar buzzwords. So from what you see, write down your answers, which cloud belongs to which person, and I'll reveal the answers right now. All right, here we go. Mr. Obama is the winner of innovation. But on the negative side of things, Romney and Kaine took over the elitist word. So if you got all 4 names correct, you just earned yourself 4 points. So let's move on to the next set of clouds. My mother always told me this one: if you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all. In these 4 word clouds, I see a lot of not so nice things. I see the word gay in the top left and bottom right, and in social media, in this context, we know that these words are being used in negative ways, even though our mothers told us to be nice. I also see the word racist in the bottom left. In the top right cloud, it's quite boring, although I do see the words stupid and idiot. So, based on these collections of words, I challenge you once again to determine which candidate belongs to which personality characteristics. And the order is different, so you'll just have to guess the 4 clouds belong to. So write down your guesses, and I will reveal the answers right now. So who have people called gay in an attempt to say something negative? That would be Romney and Perry. And who's been called racist? That would be Kaine. And who generated the most comments about being boring and ordinary? That, of course, would be Obama. The point I want to make here is that it does not matter what reality is. It doesn't matter if someone is or isn't gay, if they are or not racist. In the online space, people make whatever comments they want. They joke about whatever they want. They don't care if their comment is nice or not. Perception is reality, and perceptions equate to votes. So with that in mind, let's move on to another controversial topic. We really want to say that race doesn't matter. We want to be colorblind and accept everyone, no matter what their race, religion, gender is. But as far as we've come, we are still not where we want to be. We still talk about race, we still talk about gender, and race and gender still matter to people when they sit down to vote. So perhaps this set of word clouds won't be too difficult to unravel. I'll give you a minute to write down your answers to figure out which candidates get referenced most often in terms of the colors white and black. And here are the answers. So I'm sure no one is surprised that the two African American candidates were more likely to be referenced with the color black. And similarly, the two white candidates were more likely to be referenced in terms of the color white. Clearly, color is still something people want to talk about it, and it will factor into their voting decisions, like it or not. On to the next bit of controversy. There are significant differences in terms of how the social media space discusses religion in reference to our four candidates. You can see here one candidate is associated with the word Muslim, two of them with the word Mormon, and one of them mainly with the word Christian. If you know the candidates well, this alone will do the trick for you. So write down your answers and let's see who is right. Okay, the important thing to take note on this slide is the same. Perception is reality. It does not matter if someone is or isn't Muslim or Mormon or Christian or something else. All that matters is what people think they know. If they think a candidate is a different religion than they are, even if that's not true, that can easily affect their vote. So the most interesting word cloud here then is the one for Obama. For some reason, many people are associating the word Muslim with him, even though he's Christian. Does it matter? Well, for some people, it does. Okay, enough of the serious stuff. Let's get to the good part. Once again, if you know the candidates, then you will get at least one of these answers right. Clearly, one of our candidates has something to do with pizza. That is a dead giveaway. But you are on your own for the other three candidates. So write down your answers and let's see who the pizza person is. Yes, Herman Cain, our pizza guy. He was previously an executive at the fast food company Godfather's Pizza, and he's well known for returning the company to profitability. So if you're an American and you didn't get this question right, then tisk tisk, shame on you. You need to buy a little bit of pizza. Okay, we have one more to go. Keep track of your score. Here's another question that is a dead giveaway if you know your stuff. Here we've got word clouds of imaginary characters. There's no surprise here. We love calling people names, and that's why you see words like clown and Mickey Mouse showing up. Obviously, a lot of people don't appreciate the hard work our politicians do, but that is what stereotypes are all about. As we've seen before, one of these words clouds has something a little unusual. One of our candidates is often referenced along with cowboys. So again, write down your four answers, which candidate belongs to which cloud. And here is our answer. Yes, our cowboy is good old Perry, a Texan through and through. The rest of the folks are, I guess they're just simply clowns. And that brings us to the end of our game. So count up your scores, and let's see who knows the GOP candidates the best. If you think you've got a high score, then just type your name and answer into the chat box, and we'll see who our winner is. Finally, thanks to everyone for joining in. I hope you learned a bit, had a bit of fun. I'd like to remind Ray to try and get some sleep over the next 24 hours. Same thing for Sue and Will. Thanks to NewMR for hosting the session. And let's see what questions folks have come up with. Thanks, everyone.